So we have a couple of questions from the audience. How does your employer gauge your progress slash growth?
I think story points are probably pretty common for that. I mean, yeah, they assign story points based on how long they think the ticket should take, and then you kind of accumulate story points based on how much work you get done per week, per day. We also do it based on coworker feedback. Like if a coworker says you're doing really well, everything's going well, they'll vouch for you to your boss. If they're saying you need more work, you're not focused enough, something along those lines. I think that's especially important for a junior developer, entry-level developer, more so than story points, because that can fluctuate so much based on the tickets, based on, when you start, everything like that.
Yeah, I don't know that I have quite the experience to really be able to say it. My first job, they were I don't think they ever actually told me to work on anything. It was, I kind of showed up, saw that there was stuff to do. They had actually started in bug triage, they had started marking any bug that was fairly small and not trivial, but not critical. They marked it with a micro tag. And another developer and I started about the same time. And they're like, hey, work on the micro queue. So we had, 5 different rounds of micro queue tickets. So day 2, I fixed a bug. Day 3, I fixed like 2 or 3 bugs. And it was a great way to really get in and just start getting to know the code base. But, I just started doing things. A few weeks in, I noticed that I was fixing a lot of bugs that had to do with date pickers. So I said, well, this really needs like a full site-wide overhaul. They're like, okay. They made an epic, sort of a big ticket for me. And I spent a fair amount of time, going through site-wide and getting the state picker. So I think, taking on a project, getting projects to completion, they're going to see if you're working well with your team. I wasn't really there long enough to get into metrics. And my last company didn't really do metrics. I've only been a week and a half at my new company, or actually 6 days, I guess. And we do some estimating and stuff. So I'll see sort of whether that's quantified or not.
I think on my end, it's more just kind of, we aren't a huge team. So it's just kind of earning the trust, I guess, to start working on different aspects of the code base. So our app is not just one app. We have a Rails app, and then we have another app that's built off Sinatra. That's the one that has Elasticsearch on it. It's got a Rethink DB tied to that. It's got a bunch of different things that it's doing. Even the configuration of it, we're using Foreman for that, and just different things that are a little bit more delicate. As I worked on it, it's just kind of access to a little bit more of, okay, you think you could take on this part of the process now, and kind of letting me take a peek at it and kind of take a stab at it, and then getting some review and feedback on that and see if I took the right approach. And I think that's kind of how I've been evaluating my progress. Is just the type of challenges that I'm taking on, not only the coding, but on the stack that we're using, if I'm up for it, and gauging, what the results of it, how long did I take to build it out versus someone who would have had more experience, how much feedback, how much handholding did I need in the process, and making sure that, as I take on at least similar type challenges, the handholding becomes less and less, to where even if something is not exactly the same process, but it's similar enough to where I should be able to figure out on my own that I am. And I think that's, somewhat our approach right now with the team that we have.
What you want to focus on in like the first, like as any developer, whether it's like your first day or your first like year, or like you've been doing it for 10, is there's really kind of 2 metrics, and you guys kind of touched on them in specific, but I think you want to focus on them. So Ben talked about like the story point mentality, which is kind of like how much stuff do you actually get done? And given the fact that you might be in meetings all day and you might be doing X and you might be doing Y, people notice people who just do a lot of work and just get a lot of stuff done. So I would always try to optimize for that. Like I would always like teach meetings, and like maybe I wasn't the most popular person, but because I was getting so much done, people would like kind of like treat me with at least some respect. The next thing that you want to do is you want to own big tasks. So you want to have responsibility rather than just knocking out all of the small tickets. So sort of the 2 different ways, like everybody said basically the same thing, is just like articulating it differently. Like Aaron talked about the micro tickets that he was just like getting out quickly, like boom, 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 boom. That was his way of sort of like adding a lot of value and doing all the story points. But then the date picker, which is like this big overhaul, it's like, okay, like I'm going to just take ownership and nobody else has to worry about it. You want to focus on doing both of those things. And I think people notice, and if you do those, they'll treat you with respect. And peer respect is kind of the name of the game. if the person that's developing next to you respects the work that you're doing, your boss is going to just know, and it's like things are going to work out. And sometimes there's processes and there's one-on-ones and there's X and there's Y's, but at the end of the day, all of them could fall apart. They could indicate you're a terrible employee, but if you're doing those two things, you're going to be in a great spot anyway.